Welcome back to Joseph's Prosperity Strategy. In the last few videos, we've talked about my story and the stories of men who built massive financial empires for God's purpose. We've seen that God uses money to advance His kingdom. But today, I want to share a story that will completely redefine your understanding of prosperity. I want to talk about someone who had no wealth, no social status, and no influence. Her name was Rahab. And her story proves that true prosperity is about far more than money. It's about a different kind of currency, the currency of a transformed life. Rahab was a prostitute living in Jericho. She was at the very bottom of society, an outcast in a city destined for destruction. She had no inheritance, no influence, and no reputation. She had nothing. Yet when two Israelite spies came to her city, they came to her house. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a divine appointment. Rahab made a choice that changed everything. She hid the spies and protected them, acting in profound faith. She made a covenant with them, saying in Joshua 2:14, "Our lives for your lives. When the Lord gives us the land, we will deal kindly and faithfully with you." She didn't have a bank account to offer. Her wealth wasn't financial. It was relational. What is the two currencies of kingdom prosperity? Rahab's story shows us two types of wealth that have nothing to do with money. 1. Relational wealth. Her greatest asset was the covenant she made. She traded her faith and her life for the promise of theirs. This relational currency saved her entire family. In an instant, she went from a despised outcast to having a sacred covenant with God's people. It was a network built on trust and faith, and it had a value far beyond any gold or silver. 2. Positional wealth. When Jericho was destroyed, Rahab was not only spared, but she was brought into the community of Israel. She was redeemed and given a new identity. But the most incredible part is that she is included in the genealogy of Jesus Christ. She became an ancestor of King David. She moved from a position of shame to a place of eternal honor. That is true positional prosperity. This principle is powerfully alive today. Take John M. Perkins. He wasn't a prostitute, but he came from a deeply marginalized background. Born in rural Mississippi in 1930, he fled to California to escape racial injustice. He was an angry young man with a history of crime. He was broken, lost, and despised by many in society. He was in a pit of despair and social marginalization. But God found John M. Perkins. After a radical conversion, his life was utterly transformed. He made a courageous and intentional decision. He went back to the very communities that had seen his past pain, not to get rich, but to serve. His wealth was not money. It was his authentic testimony and his deep understanding of the pain of his people. He built his ministry on three key principles: relocation, living in the poor communities he served; reconciliation, breaking down racial barriers through the love of Christ; and redistribution, using resources to empower the poor. He started churches, health clinics, and economic development corporations. He transformed his criminal past and marginalization into redemptive wealth, using his lived experience to build a new position of influence and purpose. He didn't just talk about change, he became the change. My purpose and AMP, the Gateway Foundation. This is the very essence of my own story and my association, the Gateway Foundation. I was a child born out of wedlock in a small village in Cameroon. My past was a pit of shame and hardship. But God gave me a new position. I went from a girl who studied with a bush lamp to a professional in the National Public Health Laboratory, a woman who travels and works on epidemics and pandemics. But that was not the end goal. The true wealth and purpose came from using that new position to start the Gateway Foundation. Our mission is to provide free education and health care to marginalized children. My past isn't a scar, it's a testimony and a tool. The foundation is my positional wealth, used to give children a new life. In conclusion, what's your currency? Friends, God has a purpose for you, and it may not be to make you a billionaire, but it is to give you wealth for his kingdom. Rahab used her home, her courage, and her faith. John M. Perkins used his redeemed life. I'm using my story and my position. What is your currency? What is in your hand right now that God wants to use for his glory? If this message resonated with you, subscribe and leave a comment below with what you believe your currency is. I quote, I'll see you in our next video.